Before we get to step one, I need you to know that all of this starts with you. Finding buyers begins with how you run your day. So structure your day like the professional that you are. Live off your calendar, wake up early, get ready for work, exercise, eat right, and program your day so it doesn't end up programming you. If you want to attract serious buyers, you have to show up as a serious professional every single day. Consistency breeds success. So before you can implement any of these tactics, you have to be in control of your mind, your body, and your time. So get organized and get moving, because none of this works if you don't. Hello to all you relentless real estate rock stars out there. Mortgage rates have hit their lowest level of the year. And for the first time in almost 5 years, the Fed is going to start cutting rates. And right now, I'm feeling a little bit like Tom Hanks in Castaway, when that porta potty door finally floats up and he realizes that he can build a raft and get off that damn island. Well, in this scenario, Jerome Powell is my porta potty. Offense intended, Jerome. And these lower rates are that raft that's going to help us paddle out of this deserted real estate market and back to civilization. This is the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast market update for the week of September the 4th. I'm your host, Mike Mills, fresh off Labor Day weekend and your favorite North Texas mortgage banker with Geneva Financial. Consider me your captain, guiding you off this island of market uncertainty and toward the promising shores of real estate transactions. Today, I've got another great show lined up to shine a light on what's happening in and around the wonderful world of real estate. So, what's on the docket today? Well, first up, as always, mortgage rates. Rates have hit their lowest point all year, and the Fed is gearing up for its first rate cut in nearly 5 years. Stick around as I break down where rates are right now and where they're likely headed for the rest of 2024. Then we're going to dive into some housing data. The unsold inventory of homes has been climbing steadily across the U.S. for 2 years, right alongside those rising mortgage rates. And by the end of August 2024, there were 40% more homes on the market than there were this time last year. But now rates are dropping. So why is inventory still rising? And could this mean that we could see more buyers here in Texas in 2025? I've got the scoop on what's happening and what's coming next. And for our first news quick hit of the day, did you know that investors scooped up 1 in 6 homes sold in the second quarter of 2024, according to Redfin? I'll break down what this could mean for the future of home ownership in the United States and what it might mean for everyday buyers trying to compete. And in other news, the Department of Justice is going after Richardson-based firm RealPage for antitrust violation. If you're a renter, this could mean trouble. I'll break down what it means for you and why renting might not be the cheaper route that you think it is. And for our main topic today, last week, I walked you through creating the perfect buyer presentation in this new era of real estate. But first things first, you need to find those buyers. So today, I'm diving into 9 ways to find buyers in this post-NAR settlement landscape. Okay, one quick ask before we roll on. If you're picking up what I'm putting down today, make sure to hit subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who'd appreciate the insight. And hey, if you've got clients who are ready to make that move and need the perfect home loan or refinance, give me a shout. Helping folks navigate that mortgage maze is my bread and butter, and I'd love to help you and your clients. Okay, let's get this thing going. So now, what is everyone's favorite weekly question? Hey, Mike, what are the rates? Well, according to Mortgage News Daily, as of September the 4th, 2024, the average fixed rate conventional mortgage rate is 6.4%. The average 15-year conventional rate is 5.93%. The average FHA 30-year rate is 5.81%. The average 30-year VA rate is 5.82%. And the average jumbo rate is around 6.60%. Now, these are up just slightly from last week, but still creeping downward overall. Remember, the market doesn't move in a straight line, up or down. So expect to see these fluctuate some even as we progress in a downward direction. The Fed will be meeting September 17th, and the entire market expects the rate cuts to start this month. The only question now is if it'll be a quarter of a point or half a point. I think the safe bet is a quarter of a point cut right now, but that is already priced into the market. So don't look for a big shift in bonds and mortgage rates when the announcement is made. In fact, you could even see mortgage rates tick up slightly after the announcement because it's already expected to be cut a quarter of a point. And if it's not half a point, then some of these folks who are betting on that might adjust. So inflation's coming down. Unemployment is rising, and even with a revision to GDP up 3% for the second quarter of 2024, most analysts know that these numbers aren't incredibly reliable right now. And oh, by the way, are packed with government spending. So the economy's struggling, and the soft landing may not be in the cards. And you can expect mortgage rates to reflect that in the coming months. Look out below. Now, how far can they go? Well, many of the Fed members expect to have the Fed funds rate down by about 3/4 of a point by the end of this year. So that means if they cut a quarter of a point this month, then that would mean another quarter of a point cut in the remaining 2 meetings for the rest of 2024. Now, what does that mean for mortgage rates? Well, right now, Fannie Mae forecasts the average 30-year fixed rate to get to 6.4% by the end of this year. But we are basically there right now in September. And they predict that we'll only get to 5.9 by the end of 2025, at least right now. I would say that based on where things have been headed recently, by the end of this year, my bet is that we're going to get to that Fannie 2025 target of 5.9%. The economy continues to slide, unemployment's rising and expected to continue rising. And investors, if you've been paying attention, are slowly moving their money out of the market and into cash. And none of that spells good news for the economy or the stock market. So I think there is still room to the downside even for the next 4 months. And with the presidential election looming, global instability, and wars in Ukraine and Israel raging on right now, there aren't too many signs that I can point to say where things are getting better for 2025, at least at this point. But remember, when thinking about buying a home or advising your clients about buying a home, economic downturn affects those at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale more so than those at the top. And many people that are currently and are going to be hit the hardest by this downturn, unfortunately, were never able to buy a home in the first place. And as I'm going to tell you about later in this episode, investors are starting to buy again. You see, they see rates coming down and know prices and demand will soon start to head upwards. So they're buying homes to rent out for that very reason right now. So the question is right now a good time to buy, or should you wait until rates come down further? Well, the people with all the money and all the know-how seem to think that right now is a good time to buy. And maybe, just maybe, they know more about it than you or I. So I say follow the money. And right now, the money's moving out of the stock market and into residential real estate. So maybe you should too. Okay, next up, let's get into some housing data and see why unsold inventory is on the rise but slowing. Lower rates should be driving up sales, but they aren't. So why is that? Well, let's start with inventory. So despite the ups and downs that we've seen in the last few months, 2024 has actually been a great year for inventory. We've managed to climb up from some historically low levels from the last few years that caused prices to spike up 40% in some cases. So more inventory is a good sign for affordability. And just to give you a sense of where we're at right now, inventory did drop a little bit last week, slipping from 704,744 to 704,335. But compare that to this same week last year when the inventory went up from 503,924 to 509,562. And you can see that we're in a much better spot for homes available to buy, which again helps with prices and buyers' ability to find a deal. Remember those rock bottom inventory levels back in 2022? That all-time low was a mere 240,000 homes. Today, we are way above that, with our yearly peak for 2024 hitting just at 704, almost 705,000 just last week. But again, just for a little perspective, for all you housing crash doomers out there, if you go back to 2015, where we had a much more balanced housing market, active listings for this same exact week were sitting over 1.2 million. So while we've got more inventory than in recent years, we are still far from a fully healthy housing market. All right, now let's talk about new listings. So we're seeing the typical seasonal slowdown, but here's the kicker. 2024 is shaping up to be the second lowest year on record for new listings. How low, you ask? Well, last week, new listings came in at 59,195. And just to compare, last year was 59,081. And back in 2022, it was 62,775. So while we do have a lot more inventory on the market right now, as it starts to turn over, we still aren't adding to that inventory at a big rate, which is why you haven't seen big price reductions across the board. You see, in a typical year, about a third of all homes take a price cut. That's just standard practice in the housing world and kind of has always been. But with mortgage rates climbing over the past year or so, we've seen more price cuts as inventory rises. Last week's data showed about 39.3% of the homes had price cuts, a slight uptick from 36% in 2023, but very close to the 39% that we saw in 2022. So prices are getting reduced a little more than in 2023, but not much, even with historically low demand. And speaking of demand, Altos Research's weekly pending contract data gives us a snapshot of what's happening in real time. We are not seeing much growth week over week, and there is a growing gap in year over year data. You see, right now, we're sitting at about 368,076 pending contracts compared to 358,408 in 2023 and 404,000 in 2022. So it's kind of a mixed bag. And it's worth noting that last August, mortgage rates were starting to creep above 8%. So even with rates almost a point and a half lower this year compared to last, we still haven't seen a massive spike in demand. Okay, so what about applications? Well, I just told you about the purchase contracts, but what about people looking to get into the real estate market putting in purchase applications? Well, that has actually been pretty positive recently, which is part of the reason why I feel like the spring of 2025 might start to give light to this dimming housing market. Since rates started to drop in November of 2023, we've had 19 weeks of positive movement in purchase application, 18 weeks of negatives, and 2 weeks that were flat. So it has been a bit of a seesaw, but we are starting to see some stability. The question now is, can rates stay lower or even go lower from here, especially with growing concerns about the economy. So things are starting to creep in a good direction for more inventory and more purchases, but not a flood yet. But this time of the year, we never see big moves in either of those metrics anyway. So I don't expect to feel the real impact of all of this until the spring of 2025. Okay, y'all, let's shift gears now and talk about the Texas housing market because this is the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast. Now, I know you've been hearing a lot of chatter about inventory, demand, and prices. So let's break it down a little and highlight a story from the Dallas Morning News about your newest Texas neighbors. Now, with lower rates and a steady influx of people moving to Texas, we are still seeing steady demand for housing. Not at the same level of the last 3 years, but steady nonetheless, which again is why prices haven't crashed like some might have expected. So in July of 2024, Redfin reported that there were almost 157,000 homes for sale in Texas, a solid 21.3 jump from the previous year. That's a lot more options hitting the market than we've seen recently, which is why we're also seeing the average month of supply sitting at 4 months for the first time in a very, very long time. Now, just for a little context, the Texas Quarterly Housing Report from the second quarter of 2024 showed 125,398 active home listings, marking a whopping 41% increase from the same period in 2023. And with more homes available right now, you'd think that the market might cool off, right? Well, right now, homes are staying on the market longer, that's for sure, with an average of 48 days compared to just 31 days in 2022. And the total home inventory now stands at around that 4-month mark, up from 2.7 months in the third quarter of 2022. And Fort Worth in particular climbed above the 3-month inventory mark for the first time in over a decade. So we are just right now starting to recover from a terribly unaffordable market. So with this spike in inventory, why are prices still holding steady? Well, Texas housing inventory has been on an upward trend since hitting a 5-year low of 45,795 in 2021. But don't let those numbers fool you. The Lone Star State's population boom is playing a big part here. In fact, Texas is now ranked second in the country for attracting young and affluent people, according to a recent Dallas Morning News article. So a recent Smart Asset study using IRS data, Smart Asset, a little difficult not to get tongue-tied on that one, but anyway. So according to that study, Texas gained about 1,600 new, quote, young and rich households. The only state beating us? Florida, by a very slim margin. Now, with more of these young high earners coming to Texas, many of them between the ages of 26 to 35 and earning over $200,000 a year, the demand for housing is naturally on the rise. And that is part of the reason why home prices have not taken a nosedive, even with the higher inventory. In fact, the median home price in Texas was about $332,000 as of January of 2024, which is up 1.2% from the previous year. And experts predict that as long as inventory stays tight, prices could continue creeping up slightly even in the second half of this year. So while the statewide median home price is expected to hover around $330,000 to $340,000 for the rest of 2024, there will be some variations depending on where you look. Austin, for example, is projected to see a 12.2% drop in home prices, while San Antonio could experience a 9.4% decline. Dallas is looking at about an 8.4% decrease, and Houston might see somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5%. So it's not a one-size-fits-all scenario. Different cities are going to experience different trends, but overall, the market remains pretty resilient. So why does all this matter to you as a real estate professional? Well, Texas's growing appeal, especially among young professionals and wealthy movers, is reshaping the market. Dallas, in particular, is gaining a reputation as a haven for affluent individuals, now ranked as the 22nd most wealthy city in the world and 6th in the United States, according to Henley and Partners. And let's not forget, Texas attracted 25,000 new business establishments between 2010 and 2019, thanks of course to its business-friendly environment and no state income tax. And this trend is only fueling demand even further. So what's the takeaway here? Well, with more people flocking to Texas and mortgage rates potentially continuing to drop, demand is likely to keep climbing. That means prices could remain stable or even rise. And we might not see that crash that many have been predicting. So keep an eye on the market, stay active in your marketing, and be ready when the market does start to shift, because the Texas market is likely to be one of the places that the rebound happens the fastest. And you want to be ready to reap those benefits. So stay tuned right here, and I'll make sure you got all the tools ready to make it happen. Okay. Now, let's talk about some news stories that you may not have been aware of, but most certainly should be for your business and your clients. So with home prices still sky high and mortgage rates not exactly giving us any breaks, why are investors snapping up homes left and right? What do they know that maybe the average buyer doesn't? Well, according to a recent article from Housing Wire, investors bought up 1 in 6 homes sold in the second quarter of 2024. That's right. While many consumers are holding off, investors are diving headfirst into the housing market. And there's a good reason for that. You see, investor home purchases shot up by 3.4% year over year in the second quarter of 2024, which is the largest increase that we've seen since the second quarter of 2022. Now, if you compare that to a 1.9% decline in the total US home purchases overall, you can see that these investors are looking at something that everyone else is not seeing. Now, how are they able to do this when everyone else isn't? Well, the answer is cash. A whopping 69% of these investors are paying cash for property. You see, they don't care about rates because they have the cash in the bank. What they do care about, though, is home prices and their projections for their investments. And oh, by the way, these investors aren't just buying any old properties. They are very much zooming in on single family homes, with those purchases rising by 6.7% in the same period. Single family homes now make up 69.4% of all investor purchases. And that is the highest share since the middle of 2022. Why, you may ask? Well, because single family homes offer a strong rent growth and lower tenant turnover rates. And in just plain English, that means better returns and fewer headaches. And right now, with homeownership getting to be more and more unaffordable for many Americans, the rental market is booming. And investors, especially those who can afford to buy in cash, are cashing in, pun intended, on this solid rental demand. Now, the same cannot be said for multifamily properties like townhomes, condos, and apartments. Those are actually down 5%, 3.3%, and 1.9% respectively. So this shows a clear shift in the strategy of investors right now. Go where the stable rent growth is. And oh, by the way, that is in your neighborhood. All in all, investors purchased nearly 17% of homes sold in the second quarter of 2024, up 16% from a year ago. And aside from that crazy spike that we saw in 2022, this is the highest second quarter share on record. And to get you even more worked up, homes sold by investors in June of 2024, not the ones they bought, but the ones that they sold, generated a 58% return on their investment. 58% is what they made versus what they paid for. Now, San Francisco led the pack with investors sold homes gaining a staggering $685,000 above the purchase price. So when you see numbers like that, you can understand why investors are so confident even with today's market challenge. So what does that mean? Well, if investors are betting big on real estate right now, maybe it's worth considering why. Because despite high prices and rates, buying a home right now could still be a very smart move if you can swing it. At least all the people with the money seem to think so. Okay, next story. Now, I know many of you out there and many of your clients are seeing those high home prices and rates and thinking maybe renting is the way to go for now. But let me tell you why that might be a riskier move for the long term, especially with what's brewing over at the Department of Justice. So the Department of Justice, along with attorney generals from 8 states, just filed a big antitrust lawsuit against my favorite corporate whipping boy, RealPage, a company based right here in Richardson, Texas. Now, I've talked about these guys many times previously on the podcast, but if you haven't heard, let me get you up to speed. So RealPage is being accused of running a, quote, unlawful scheme to reduce competition among landlords and basically monopolizing the market for commercial revenue management software. And this lawsuit isn't just some minor slap on the wrist. This comes after a nearly 2-year investigation into how RealPage does business. Now, why should you or your clients care? Well, the lawsuit claims that RealPage's software uses private, sensitive data shared by competing landlords to recommend rent prices and lease terms. That might sound like a fancy way of saying, quote, market analysis, but what it actually amounts to is illegal price collusion. Essentially, it lines up rental prices across landlords who would otherwise be competing against each other, driving those prices up. And this is at the very heart of what antitrust means, unlike what happened to NAR. But I digress. Now, here's why it matters. RealPage controls about 80% of the market for commercial revenue management software for multifamily dwellings. That's right, 80%. The Department of Justice is saying that RealPage is essentially a monopoly in this space, and they're comparing the tactics to old school price fixing method. The difference is that they're doing it with modern algorithms that align rents among competitors. It's kind of like price fixing for the digital age, and it is a new battleground for antitrust enforcement. So what does this mean for renters? Well, when landlords use RealPage's software, they're entering a, quote, self-reinforcing feedback loop. You see, landlords share their data to get price recommendations, and these recommendations are based on competitors' sensitive data. And this is a cycle that keeps prices high and makes it tough for other landlords to offer competitive, lower pricing. So who ultimately gets hurt in all of this? It's renters, plain and simple. You see, RealPage's software is designed to maximize profits by suggesting the highest possible rent based on data from other landlords. It encourages landlords to keep prices as high as possible, even when market conditions might suggest a need for lower rents. And in some cases, it might even reduce the amount of rental stock available if landlords see more profit in holding those units out for higher prices. So they'll literally keep units empty and not rent them out in order to keep the rental prices higher for the units available. And this isn't just a sit it and forget it type of algorithm at work. There are literally human enforcers behind the scenes making monthly calls to ensure landlords stick to the plan, applying pressure to follow those sky high price recommendations. The system even comes with features like auto accept for high prices and sold out mode to keep rents high, even when demand isn't there. It's a pretty sophisticated setup that manages to enforce price collusion without the landlords ever needing to get into a room and shake hands on it. So the takeaway here is simple. Renting might seem like a good short-term option when you see high prices and high interest rates. But with practices like these driving rents up, it might not be a long-term solution the way you think it is. And if the Department of Justice has anything to say about it, we might see some changes coming down the line. But for now, beware. You see, the biggest line item in your home budget is the cost of your dwelling. And to think that big corporate landlords won't just find a way around this lawsuit, even if they lose, well, that's just naive. Renting gives control of your home expense to your landlord. And the house doesn't always win, but in this case, the landlord sure do. Okay, moving on to our main story. Let's get to the meat of today's episode. Okay, I've got a question for you. In this post-NAR settlement world where the market is shifting under our feet, how are you finding buyers? What tools and methods have you implemented that is driving your business? If the answer is none, or I don't know, then no fear. I've got you covered. So last week we went over the 10 steps to the perfect buyer presentation, but step one was a big one, find a buyer. And let's be real, that needed its own segment deep dive. So here we are. I'm breaking down 9 ways to find more leads in this new market landscape. And trust me, these aren't just ideas. They are actionable steps that you can start using today. You ready? Let's go. Wait, before we get to step 1, I need you to know that all of this starts with you. Finding buyers begins with how you run your day. So structure your day like the professional that you are. Live off your calendar, wake up early, get ready for work, exercise, eat right, and program your day so it doesn't end up programming you. If you want to attract serious buyers, you have to show up as a serious professional every single day. Consistency breeds success. So before you can implement any of these tactics, you have to be in control of your mind, your body, and your time. So get organized and get moving because none of this works if you don't. All right, step 1, develop your unique selling proposition, your USP. So what sets you apart from all the other agents out there? Are you the relocation expert, the luxury listing guru, or the first-time homebuyer specialist? Figure out what you're best at and build your marketing around it. Because the more niche you are, the more that you stand out in the crowd. Start by identifying your unique strengths and skills, and then use those to craft a very strong USP. Build your brand around that niche and let it guide your marketing strategy. The goal? When people think of that specialty, they think of you. But these days, perhaps even more importantly, when people search for that specialty or use words around that specialty, they find you. You see, in today's market, your sphere is not going to be enough. People have to find you that don't know you. And having a strong and unique selling proposition makes you much, much easier to find. Number 2, door knocking modernized. I know what you're thinking. Door knocking? Isn't that a bit old school? Well, not anymore. And not if you need the business. Think of door knocking and call it version 2.0. Instead of the hard sell, try what I would call soft walking. Walk a neighborhood, exercise, stroll, walk your dog, and get to know that neighborhood like the back of your hand. And while you're doing that, hand out modernized marketing materials with QR codes. And these codes are going to link to property videos, neighborhood facts, or even just market updates. Because this is all about driving traffic to your YouTube channel. And oh, by the way, if you don't have a YouTube channel, then you are already way behind. It's basically like not having a website these days. So if you don't got one, you better get one. And if you need help with that, give me a call. I'm happy to show you how. But what you're doing here is you are establishing yourself as the local expert. And here's an added bonus. Using this strategy during open houses is very effective. Encourage residents who live in the neighborhood where your open house is being held to pick their neighbors by giving them the tools to share your content with their friends and family. Number 3, create lead magnets. Lead magnets are a tool that you probably know about, but also probably don't know how and also don't really use. Think about what your potential buyers are in need of. A final walkthrough checklist for new construction, a first-time homebuyer checklist, a guide to understanding mortgage rates, whatever it is. These are tools that help, educate, and most importantly, get contact details into your database. Speaking of databases, build your database. It is the lifeblood of your business, and lead magnets are one of the best ways to grow it. So take these lead magnets and share them on your social media sites because you're truly helping someone with free information. And all they have to do is give you their email address. Just be sure to make them valuable and informative, and you will truly add something of value to your followers and future clients. And if you don't know how to build one, ask AI and check out Canva. It's easier than you think. Step number 4, use story-driven testimonials. So forget those boring old surveys and dry testimonials. Although, if you don't have those, then you need to kind of start there. But if you're already great at getting your clients to fill out surveys and reviews, then instead record your clients sharing their genuine stories about their experiences working with you. And oh, by the way, the best time to do this is after you close on their home because you're already with them. And when you do it, you want to capture the emotion, the challenges, and the triumphs. People love a good story. They connect with it. And then share these testimonials on your social media sites and your YouTube channel that you now have, because these are more than just endorsements. They're narratives that showcase your value. Step number 5, focus on 1 or maybe 2 social platforms. Look, you do not have to be everywhere at once. Find 1 or 2 social platforms where you feel most comfortable and go all in. Maybe it's Instagram with its visual storytelling or LinkedIn with its more professional content. Whatever it is, Become the expert on that platform. Learn how to use it, when to post, what to post, and most importantly, engage, engage, engage. This is by far the biggest key to any social media market. Engage with others and they will return the favor. Your goal is to be seen as the go-to agent out there, just like you are in your niche. Quality over quantity is the name of the game here. So find one and focus. Number 6, become the mayor of your town. You have to be the agent that everyone in your area knows and trusts. And if you want to be that person, then you need to be the agent that knows everyone. So do things like partner with one local business each month for cross promotion. You want to show what's happening in the community, go to events, show openings and new businesses, go to charity functions, because if you give, you get. And oh, by the way, if you do these things, make videos or at the very least, take some pictures and post about it. But let everyone know that you are the center of the town, because when people think of your community, they should think of you. So get out there and get involved. Shake hands and kiss babies, because you got to be seen in order to be remembered. Step number 7, use your email signature. Listen, you send emails every single day. Why not make them work a little harder for you? In your signature, you can add links to your latest YouTube videos that have your market updates, lead magnets, or social media channels right there in your signature. It's an incredibly easy way to drive traffic and promote yourself without any extra effort. And don't just do this for the business emails to your clients. Every single email communication that you send out is a potential lead and another opportunity to brand yourself with everyone that you come in contact with. And there are a ton of products out there and software services that can help you build an effective and very stylish signature with all these features. Just Google it. You'll find a bunch. And guess what? You only have to do this one time. And you can update it every quarter if you want to, if you want that extra credit, if you want to highlight something in particular. But ultimately, it doesn't take any time, but it continues to work for you every single day that you have it. Step number 8, create hyper-local content for SEO. So SEO these days isn't just for tech geeks. And if you don't know what SEO means, it's search engine optimization. And you need to know what it means because it's good for you too. Again, you are the mayor and you have a unique selling proposition. So create hyper-local content that talks about specific neighborhoods, communities, or even street-by-street market updates. Learn about keywords, hashtags, and what people are searching for on Google in your area and make content about that. Now, this one does require a little bit of research and time, but with the right tools and the right systems, you can make it very simple and easy. And if you are making content of any kind, this has to be a focus of everything that you do to produce it. Titles, descriptions, thumbnails. People use search to find what they're looking for. And in order to find you, then you got to use the right words that people use to search. And finally, step number 9, be a database master. So you've got your lead magnets, your videos, your testimonials, and all your links set up. Now it's time to put that all together with email marketing. I know you might say that I delete emails every single day and nobody reads those. And that's fine. But you still see them and you still delete them and they still show up on your feed every day. And if someone wants to unsubscribe, they will. But how often do they? Not very often. You see, your database is going to pay your bills for the rest of your career. And if you can master it, you will easily live the life that you've always wanted, and often with very little effort. So create engaging content like, here's the deal of the week, or here's your market update, or your business highlight of the week, or even just a monthly newsletter. You can use tools like Canva and ChatGPT to help you whip up professional looking emails in no time at all. And at this point, if you've done it right, you have enough video content on your YouTube channel to never be short of content to send out, because the key here is consistency. Keep showing up in their inbox with value. And when they're ready to make a move, guess who they're going to think of first? That's right, you. Well, guys, that's it. So in this slower housing market where commissions may even start to head lower, you've got to be a Jedi marketer to stand out, because this is all about mastering your craft. Focus on the fundamentals and go deep rather than wide. If you can combine some of these strategies effectively, you won't just survive in this market, you're going to thrive. So get out there and dominate your day. Well, guys, that is a wrap for today's episode. I hope I've been able to give you even just a small push forward on your path to real estate success. I'm going to be here each week to bring you the best insights and tips, and I genuinely appreciate you showing up and being a part of this community. This market's been a tough ride for the last few years, but I truly believe that we're on the verge of a turnaround. So now is the time to get prepared, because next spring could bring one of the best markets that we've seen in quite a little while. So it's time to gear up and seize that opportunity. Hope you guys all have an amazing week. And until next time, be great humans and just keep grinding. Because life is what you make it. So make it great. See you later.